in 2021, at this point, towards the ending of the year, right? Like later in 2021, I had just turned 18 years old. So I was 17, I just turned 18. So, technically I was an adult now, right? And I remember one day my mom asked me a question that really threw me off guard. So I can't remember the exact lines or what the exact question was. So something like, when am I going to buy myself new clothes? That type of stuff, right? Something like that. I don't know if it was exactly clothes she was asking about, but something of that nature. And I remember when she asked me, I was really puzzled, like, buy myself new clothes. And it didn't make much sense to me because at the time, before all this, I was a child, basically 17 and below, right? So when I was a teenager and all that. But like my parents basically bought clothes for us. Like you would just wake up, maybe a random day, like a special holiday, that's when you see new clothes and they'll just buy it for you, right? So if you like it, if you don't like it, you don't have a choice, you have to eat like that.
By the way, if you're in a rut now and you're finding it difficult to get back on your feet and get back in the grind and get back to the flow of things, I've actually created a program that's going to help you do just that. If you're interested in that, if this is a problem you're facing and you actually need a solution, just click the first link in the description of this video.
Now my mom was asking me basically like, it's now in my power, when am I going to buy new clothes? And this period felt very overwhelming for me because all my life, I was basically just used to being a child, right? Like my parents did, all the like major life decisions for me. But it's like for the first time in my life, I had a lot of power in my own hands. And also this period, I just got into the university, so I started living in the school hostels, right? Like campus by myself with roommates, like strangers I never knew. Like no parent supervision, no nothing, it's just me. Obviously every now and then my older brother will come and check on me, but it was like 90% just me by myself. And I remember in this period of my life, I felt one of the most, would I say, confused and chaotic. Like this was one of the most chaotic periods of my life, right? And that was a phase, obviously, right? And as time went on, obviously I adapted into it and all that. But the reason why I brought up that little story is this is what you'll notice in between phases of your life and then never again. It's so weird because that period, I like to call it the crisis period. Usually it's when you're transitioning from one particular stage of your life to another. Because while there's a little crisis in the middle, it's because this, stage of your life has been a certain way for a very long time. So me, for example, in the story I told, I was basically used to being a child for a very long time and my parents made every major life decision for me. Right? Then all of a sudden I was stepping into this new world or this new role of being an adult that's okay, I'm now able to make most of my choices by myself. And there was this crisis period because that period I felt very, very confused and everything seemed to be happening so fast and changing so fast and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was doing it right or if I was doing it wrong. There was nobody to give me, guidance like you usually would. Obviously my parents were still there to give me guidance, but it's not like before that if I'm doing something, they can correct me on the spot, like, hey, stop doing this, don't do this. Like, for example, maybe what I want to eat, right? In the morning I can, if I want to eat, let's say you want to eat ice cream for breakfast, for example. My parents would be like, you can't eat ice cream for breakfast, you eat this instead. But when I was in this, just getting to university, like, if I wanted to eat ice cream for breakfast, I could eat ice cream for breakfast and nobody would care. So that period felt really weird, right? And that's just one example of, basically the different phases of my life. But the thing I've noticed about these phases is like they usually eventually come to an end and you will never basically see them again. I'm never ever going to, experience being 17/18 years old again. So basically it's gone forever. But that particular pattern, this crisis period, keeps coming up over and over and over again. I also remember graduating from university recently, so this one is one more recent, right? So prior to this, I first had the transition from being like a child going to high school, getting into university, and now finally university coming to an end and me graduating and basically getting a job, right? Starting to make a little bit of money. And that one too was also another transition period with a lot of crisis in it because all of a sudden I had to have a job, right? Like I had to wake up and leave the house and go and hustle for money and have a boss I'm reporting to and have work I'm doing and getting paid on this and that. So that also felt, you know, very weird inside. But the point I'm just trying to make is like, life is very interesting. The funny thing about this crisis period is that it eventually comes to an end. So it's not something you should stress a lot about recently. A lot about too much rather. You should just more like accept it for what it is and, you know, be grateful it won't happen, because that crisis period, in the moment, it will feel extremely uncomfortable. It will feel extremely like something you don't want to be experiencing. But it's something that you look back on and just be proud and be glad it happened, because that crisis period is what basically is building you to adapt to your new surroundings, to adapt to your new reality, to adapt to this new phase of life you're in. So to not make this video longer than it needs to be, what you will notice in between phases of life is this crisis period, right? So for example, you might be transitioning from maybe being broke to eventually becoming rich, right? And there's this crisis period because it's like basically challenges your perspective, your worldview, your identity. Everything you once believed is just basically getting shattered, destroyed, reformed into a new way of thinking, a new way of life to enter this new phase. Maybe before you used to be single and now you're in a relationship or getting into a relationship, and everything you used to believe, everything you once knew, the way you behaved, all that is also getting shattered, destroyed, reformed, and rebuilt into this new, to adapt into this new phase you're going to enter, right? So it's something you should be, you know, happy about. It's something you should be pretty stoked for. But in the moment, it might not feel like the most fun thing to go through. But you will notice this in between phases of your life, and then never again.
By the way, if you're in a rut now and you're finding it difficult to get back on your feet and get back in the grind and get back to the flow of things, I've actually created a program that is going to help you do just that. If you're interested in that, if this is a problem you're facing and you actually need a solution, just click the first link in the description of this video.